if you're really good at this, you make it look easy. But what they don't understand is I'm here at 8 a.m. I'm here till 7 p.m., maybe even later than that. And maybe I shouldn't be, but I enjoy it. And I feel that in order for this engine to hum, it's necessary that I touch carts. And you can see the mess behind me that literally every single thing that we buy goes through me.
Jameel Muhammad and Jeff Cardozo dive into the hobby, which is sports cards, trading cards, as well as all other collectibles, right now on the Meelypod Hobby Podcast, live from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill.
All right, we are back yet again for the Meelypod Hobby Podcast alongside Jameel Muhammad. I am Jeff Cardozo. We, as always, get to hang out in Spurrier's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, and it is certainly good to be in the middle of the state, not good to be anywhere on the coast this time because another hurricane coming over this week, and a weird one that has formed. I've never really seen it form on that far left side over by Mexico and shoot across that way. But, you know, Jameel, thoughts and prayers for everybody in that path. I know you've got a lot of friends in that Tampa area. Gosh, the Bucks even bailed on Tuesday. They flew to New Orleans to hang out for the week to play football. So hopefully this thing is not going to destroy a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's, how do you prepare for something like
Sure.
this, right? You know, and kind of out of nowhere, you know, I think you can look at models and you can say projections, but people probably had about a week to kind of recognize, maybe less than that. So driving in here today, you see everybody on the other side of the freeway, you know, it's like a zombie apocalypse kind of thing. But, you know, our hope is that, you know, people are smart, right? And that the destruction isn't as bad as it's projected to be, and that we here in Gainesville too, you know, I mean, even North Florida, that we don't take a huge hit, you know. But it's just one of those real odd situations that you don't want anybody to have to deal with a hurricane. You know what I mean? But somebody's going to have to deal with a hurricane.
Sure. And the crazy part of just having to deal with it really about a week and a half ago, and all the homes and different things that were destroyed and the flooding and everything else, not only here in Florida, but certainly up in the Carolinas. And, you know, I know your shop's a little more east up there, but I'm sure you've still got some people up there that had to deal with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so you have employees, right? I mean, that's a big thing you think about is like employees and their families, guys and gals that didn't have power for a week, 2 weeks. One of the guys who's helping us with the card show that we have in just a few weeks up there, he was telling me that he just got power just a couple days ago, right?
Wow.
So that was, you know, 2.5 weeks, 2 weeks or whatever. So I think we're going to see some of that in Florida. You know, I think we're a little bit better prepared here, but again, it's just been a lot of destruction. And I think about the card shops too. You know, I try and always, like, it's such a big thing, right? Like, you have to think, what can I relate to? And I just look at the card shops and the hobby and the people that I know down there. I mean, we interviewed one of our podcasts is KK Sports Cards. You know, he has a massive operation, and he is having to evacuate everybody to Georgia, move all the inventory. I mean, all the kind of stuff that he does with his breaks and the great things that he does in his shop. Another shop over there in Clearwater, I know during Helene, it was 4 feet of water inside the shop. So, you know, you think, what's going to happen now? So yeah, there's a lot of changes coming, I think, for people, but I just hope everyone's safe and does the right thing.
Yeah, everybody do what you're asked to do, and hopefully it lessens and certainly is not as much. Well, what was a lot was the craziness of college football this past weekend. You know, I always get a kick out of Lane Kiffin, listening to his press conferences, different things.
Yeah.
He was actually sitting there as he was getting interviewed, watching the end of the Alabama-Vandy game, and he's like, sorry, this is a once-in-a-lifetime thing, like a really bad hurricane, but it's just he's saying this will never happen again.
Yeah.
Where Alabama's going to beat Vandy. It'd been, 40 years, and just kind of craziness. So it's weird because, you know, you think about it, you know, we talk about the professional sports all the time, but I would even assume something like that trickles down into Jalen Milroe someday, or maybe not winning the Heisman now, so then the cards aren't as big next year. So it's just nuts how little things can change a whole landscape.
Vanderbilt doing it as well. How about little things, Vanderbilt, you know, and marching the goalpost down.
And how about that? I mean, how cool is, from a memorabilia standpoint, I saw the firefighters getting that out of there. I mean, I can only imagine if they cut pieces of that up and sell it off. And I mean, that's going to be a big memorabilia thing.
I think they should have, instead of taking it to the river, they should have walked it down to Meelypops SC, and we could have handled it a little bit better. So, but no, you bring up cards and you bring up NIL, and there's a lot of changes that have happened. So Panini and Topps are incorporating more of these college athletic cards into cards. This was not a thing 5 years ago, right? I mean, you didn't really see college cards. And if you did, they were very rare one-offs, older sets. But now we're seeing significant releases for college. So you have the National Treasures version of that in collegiate football and flawless football for Panini. In Topps, I mean, the Bowman Chrome brand has been huge when it comes into Bowman Chrome University, and not just college football, college basketball, massive as well. And I hope they can maybe tier this into some college baseball down the line too. We'll see how that works. But
that'd be cool.
Yeah, I think with you look at someone like Jalen Miller you brought up, right? He's got cards in Luminance this year, autograph cards. He's got cards from the Panini gold packs from the National, and his stuff was high. But now it's like, where does the Alabama faithful, where do people look at him versus, some of these other, quarterbacks that are, who knows where they're going to be. I mean, we look at some of the autographs that are in Luminance this year, for example, Gabriel, Arch Manning, Milrose in it, Nussmeier. Some of these cards are selling for like $300, $400, $500, $600.
Wow.
And so this is very uncommon for a brand like Luminance, which is not a very big brand, but also to see these names and these command these kind of prices. So it really is a supply-demand thing when it comes to the NIL autograph. So I think you're going to start to see more of the upsets affecting the card market in a much more unique way than years past.
Well, I even think it from the mock draft. Everybody loves Mel Kiper and all the things that are going on. Is it worth looking at what he's putting out there? Because I saw a mock the other day, had Carson Beck at the end of the first round. It had Nussmeier, who you just mentioned, right in the middle of the first round. So Nussmeier was actually better than Carson Beck from the beginning of the year. So it is kind of crazy. And maybe you look at some of that stuff and say, hey, maybe I'll go invest in that guy because he's going to get drafted higher.
Yeah. Or do I pick up an Arch Manning now because Ewers may be gone, and then,
right.
Arch Manning is going to be massive the next year.
Sure.
There's lots of things that you can play around with that. I think with card investing and just projecting that, it's tough in college because the NIL and people can move too, right? And look at Cam Ward, right? I mean, this is a guy, who I think he has autographed cards in Inception from his previous team. Was it Collins? Where's he from?
Washington State.
That's right. Yeah. Sorry, yeah. There's a W. There's a dub in there.
Incarnate Word before that, which I don't know if there's any cards of that.
I mean, that's wild to think, right? But just look at him. And that comeback was amazing, So he's, again, game day was there and that whole thing with Marshawn Lynch drive. I mean, it was a wild weekend in California, but they won that game. And so, where does his stuff go? I know it's just accelerated in value. So looking for some of that stuff and holding on to it in the preseason before, I think can really pay off. I think someone like Carson Beck, everyone expected to be huge, and now his card values have dropped a little bit too. So
I'm just waiting for you to get tatted up like Carson Beck, get that arm sleeve.
You want to get the whole sleeve?
Yeah, make it look snazzy. All right, you said California, so now let's go to a real sport in baseball because playoffs are going on right now. You've got fans fighting. It's this huge rival between the Padres and the Dodgers. It's absolutely nuts. I'm excited because I know I have some Tatis stuff you hooked me up with a few years ago and kind of said, hey, this guy might be pretty good. So I was like, all right, I'll get a few of his cards. But I don't have any Jackson Merrill stuff. Am I an idiot because I didn't get Jackson Merrill?
He's an interesting guy too, right? Like Merrill is kind of out of nowhere, right? And so Bowman Chrome and those kind of cards that people saw, there's not a lot of them. They didn't have a lot of autograph runs, so his demand is huge right now, and he's just playing lights out. Someone like Tatis has been dormant for some time. He came down in value, so if you had bought Tatis, I mean, his stuff is trickling up again. Can they upset the Dodgers? We'll see. I mean, it's going to be a very interesting series. You got to love the fans and the players jawing at each other. I mean, it's real playoff baseball there, and I think it's just fun to watch. On the flip side, in the AL, you got probably one of the most unique young teams. We got a lot of ties to Kansas City with the Gators, and then of course you have them going against the big bad, the evil empire, the dark side, which is the Yankees. So that's going to be another exciting series to see. A lot of young talent in that as well. So we'll see what happens. I mean, there's a lot more baseball as well. I'm not counting out the Phillies and Mets and Pete Alonso and of course the Guardians and the Tigers, but we'll see what happens. I think with cards, it's always so interesting who makes the World Series because those cards will, especially if it's somebody like that nobody was really buying,
right. Yeah, maybe Riley Green from Detroit, things like that. Some of these, cards, now that they're playoff relevant, I would assume that would, I mean, you can watch the Royals game if you watched it last night, and there's probably even if you're a baseball fan, 7 guys in that lineup. I've never even heard of that guy.
Yeah.
And he's got 80 ribbies on the year. So it's just, it is kind of fascinating where you might be able to go through that Bowman draft box from a few years ago and say, oh, there's that dude. And now they're in the playoffs. So is that where you encourage people to, obviously you're looking for those big hits, but like, what do you do with the rest of the packs? Like, what is the normal guy like me that buys the Bowman box only looking for those, like, where are all those other cards going? What should you do with them?
Well, there's a lot of good options. So, like for me, I don't talk about this a lot, but we use a service called comc.com, which is great for like inserts and low parallels. A lot of people use this, and they send tons of these kind of lower end cards off for consignment. And then what they do is they put them on their platform and eBay as well.
Okay.
And you can just sell through that. They of course get commission and charge fees and things, but that's a great opportunity to take that kind of non-base stuff that you don't, or I have guys in the shop that do shows and they put them in their dollar box, right? So cards that you just put in a dollar box, 15 for 10 or whatever it is, and people will go through that. So there's ways to kind of move that stuff, or you just put that stuff away, especially rookie cards that maybe people don't know. Update Chrome's coming out in baseball soon, so you're going to see some interesting cards there, some rookies that kind of came through the season. So there's a lot of ways to move cards, and then of course if it's a lot of base and you don't have any space for it, I always say donate to give them to kids. Go to baseball teams and basketball teams, football teams, give them base cards, and don't just give them all the no names. Throw in a Steph Curry or LeBron or a Bryce Harper or a Ichiro, or I say Ichiro, Ohtani card once in a while, because I think it goes a long way, and we do that a lot with kids. So there's ways to cycle cards for sure.
I do love Ichiro though. One of my favorites from back in the day.
Yeah.
Certainly good stuff. All right, I know one of your favorites is the Cardfather that we're going to talk to here in just a few minutes. Well, just Jameel is. I'm going to bail, let him do the interview so he can work his magic. But then we'll come back. We'll do the wax segment. And I was kind of peeking into your little goodie bag before you got here and you walked away. There's a pretty cool little product coming out that looks pretty snazzy that I'm excited about.
Well, there's two. Is it Bowman Sterling or Bowman or Cosmic Chrome that you like?
The Cosmic.
Yeah.
So never seen that before.
Yeah. It was a brand that came out a few years ago, and now it's just really taken off. And so that comes out Friday. We'll talk about in the wax segment. But yeah, there's a lot of cool releases in baseball. Here's an interesting thing for people listening, watching. Baseball and investing right now is very tricky because there's a lot of new products coming out. But the season's over, right? In what, a month? It'll be over. So you have to be very kind of savvy with that when the buying and selling of it. But there's a great opportunity right now. I always say, like, the guys who've lost, like teams that are out of the playoffs right now, buying some of their stuff to grade right now, send that stuff off to grading that you think are going to be great next season. So you wait 3, 4, 5 months later, and when you get that stuff back, it's going to be prime time. So if you have PSA 10s, things like that, and these can be cheaper cards. I mean, you can find some really good deals right now of non-playoff teams. So just think through that. Think about players like Acuna on the Braves. You know what I mean? There's a lot of players out there that I think you can dive into and get some really solid cards.
Yeah, that may have been forgotten about, like you mentioned with Tatis, and then all of a sudden relevant again. All right, this guy's always relevant. One of the best out there, the Cardfather, Rob Veras. He joins the Meelypod Hobby Podcast right after this.
Alberta, I understand you were witnesses to a crash. Can you tell us about the accident? When you're in a crash, it's important to get witness statements immediately after the accident. Whether you're in a car, truck, motorcycle, scooter, or even a golf cart accident, at Meldon Law, we won't back down.
This is Jameel, owner of the Meelypop shop, Gainesville's home for collectibles of all sorts, including every single type of sports cards, whether it be Panini, Topps, Leaf, Upper Deck. We have it. Come on in, get yourself a box, a pack, get yourself some supplies, get into our breaks, get your Pokemon, get your Yu-Gi-Oh! All the other different kinds of TCG products that we carry and shop are always fully in stock. You can find our stuff on our website as well, meelypops.com. That's another way you can interact with the store, or you can just come into the shop. We're located off 39th Avenue by I-75 behind Walgreens and Sonny's. Stop on by. We're open every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And you can check us out on our social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, whatnot, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We'd love to see you. Come on out to the shop, have some fun, be a part of the card community here in Gainesville, and always go Gators. Welcome back to the Meelypod Hobby Podcast. This is episode 19 with Jameel. Jeff isn't here. He had to skedaddle, but he's really bummed he's missing out on hearing the Cardfather interview today. So I'm going to bring on Rob Veras here just shortly. Before I get him on the virtual, I just want to give a quick intro to this man who he's really just been a pioneer in the card world, the card space. So for our listeners or our viewers, as you guys see this podcast, it's really a timeline. It's a history lesson in the hobby, and he's going to share a lot just about where he's come from. And I'm excited to hear those stories. I've had a lot of interactions with Rob, whether it be card shows, the national, whether it be events like the Tops Industry Summit. But the one thing I can say about him is he's always smiling, and he's always been just gracious to help other shops. So I think he's just joined in. So Rob, I think I got you on virtual. You there, Mr. Varies?
I am here, Jameel and Jameel, and super pumped to be here. When you reached out to me, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be so much fun. So looking forward to the questions and looking forward to kind of shooting the hobby.
Yeah, man. So the Cardfather has made it to the podcast. So this podcast we started about 19 episodes ago, and we've just been interviewing different shop owners and people in the hobby and people in the industry and athletes and celebrities, yada yada yada. But I love talking to card shop owners because it brings it's almost like a validation, right, for what I do and what you do when we get a chance to talk about this. And we've had Andy from IndyCard and Ryan from RBI, and we'll have other card shop owners. But man, I just would love to hear your thought on where we are today, man. Like, did you ever dream that this is where the sports card market would be?
I'd like to say yes, but the actual answer is no. Whether I was opening packs of 75 tops or selling baseball cards in a coin shop at 13 years old or opening the store, no, never dreamed of it. Never dreamed of the scale, never dreamed of the diversity of the collector, and just never dreamed of the type of corporations and companies that would be involved in it. So, no, I could have never figured this out in a million years, but just happy to be here.
Yeah, I hear that a lot from the OGs, the guys that have been around the block, so to say, and it's just interesting to see the progression, man. And when you think about progression, and I think about timelines, I would love for you, if you get a chance, to just share a little bit here about how your family has built just the Burbank empire. And maybe you could start with when your shop first opened, to the 90s craze, 80s, 90s craze, rise of eBay, which is a little bit later than that, late 90s, early 2000s, COVID, and then maybe even opening just this amazing new shop that I would love to hear about, that you're building.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. Opened the store April 1st, not kidding. 1989, I was 22 years old, and it was a coin and stamp shop that I'd worked for 10 years prior. Actually started delivering flyers for this coin and stamp shop at 12. So took over the business in 1989, had some help from my parents. My mom worked with me for 18 years until she passed, and my father's been with me for almost the past 30 years. Working with me, and couldn't be here without him for sure. But yeah, it seems like a lifetime ago, and it was so different. We were dealing in 50-cent packs of Topps, Fleer, and Donruss, and then you think the big news of 1989 is, oh my God, we're going to double the price of packs, as Upper Deck came out with $1 pack, and there was a lot of outrage. People were like, whoa, and boxes were $30, and that was a big deal back then. Literally the doubling of a price of cards was kind of just out there at the time, and owning that shop through the 90s was wild, as we had that easy for me to say, proliferation of products that came out, and it went from Topps, Fleer, Donruss to bringing on Upper Deck, and then you got Leaf, and you got Pacific, and you got Playoff, and you got Collector's Edge, and they all have so many different variants of product that it became almost impossible to keep track of things. And it was good in a lot of ways, but it was also a rough decade. You dealt with player strikes, which were something that it really kind of hurt the industry, and just that proliferation drove a lot of people out because it became too expensive or too complicated to collect cards. But with all that being said, it was a glorious decade as well, as it brought about incredible innovation with having all these different manufacturers that wanted to stand out in the crowd, and it brought about game used cards, and brought about autographs being a regular component in products and serial numbering. And it all began in the 90s. And then you saw that word again, proliferation of card shops coming in. And where you used to have, one or two in your area, you might have had 5 to 20 card shops in your area, which was a good thing, because I believe card shops are billboards for the industry. So it gave a lot of presence to the hobby, but it also kind of brought about a bunch of people that were only in it for the money. And those that were only in it for the money didn't seem to last that long. But those that were in it for the long term and building hobby and building a place where people wanted to go put their hands on cards and enjoy things, many of those shops are here till this day. So the 90s was wild. Wouldn't change it for anything. I grew up in the hobby basically in the 90s. I was mostly in my 20s, early 30s, and it taught me a lot of things. And by the end of the 90s, we had technology, we had databases, we had eBay, we had ways to sell things online. So it went from a very simple 89 upper deck becomes a buck to all of a sudden having online databases and having products that are hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and the innovation that went along with it. Getting over to eBay in, I guess, 98 or so, eBay came online and it literally changed everything. And within a few years, we were able to cross-post our inventory. What we're known for is our Beckett Marketplace store, and we've had that since 1999. And with eBay, with Beckett, we were able to cross-list to eBay a few years later. And that became a huge revenue source for us. And then we were able to put tens of thousands of cards onto eBay time effectively. And it was just tremendous for us. But the biggest hurdles with eBay for a store like mine is when they made images mandatory, which was a nightmare. And they also had insertion fees, if you'll recall. And insertion fees were 3 to 5 cents, and you're like, not a big deal if you have 100 cards. It's $3 to $5. You have 1,000 cards. But when you have a million different cards and you start looking at the math, it's $30,000 to $50,000 just to list the cards, which is crazy. That's before final value fees. So eBay was something that we had to keep a very limited inventory on. And it was frustrating because I know I have all these cards. And so I kind of chased people from eBay because, as you know, they would show up at industry events. They would show up at the National. And I kept chasing them saying, I want to put this inventory on your platform, but we're unable to because of the upfront costs. And of course, it's difficult to get images. So we had a couple hurdles there. And they came to my store, finally got them to come out and see the warehouse, had the head of collectibles come out. And she's like, why aren't these cards on our platform? And I'm like, why are you charging me insertion fees? Because we can put all this on our platform. And she's like, let's go back up to San Jose. Let's have a meeting and let's get something set up to eliminate insertion fees for you. And at the same time, I discovered a scanner that could literally change the game. And we were the first one to use it in the industry. It was a Fujitsu 6130Z. And what that scanner was able to do was suck through 40 cards a minute, front, back, and auto crop, which changed everything. And the scanner came, and I was at the National, and my guy got it, set it up, and is like, Rob, I just scanned an 81 top set in 14 minutes. I'm like, that changes everything. Now we can digitize the inventory. And all of a sudden, our sales on eBay just exploded because we had such a competitive advantage with us already having all these millions of cards in Beckett's database. Now we're able to tie images, which are mandatory, to those cards and get all those cards to eBay. So our market share was incredible because we are so far ahead of everyone else. Our cards were super organized and we were able just to pound away. And eBay became, an essential part of our business. And kind of moving into COVID, it became our only business, really. And we thought COVID, and I'm sure you did too, was end of days. I mean, people are scraping for toilet paper and getting laid off and are worried about this disease killing family. And here I am, selling cards. People and your store, little did I know, would be locked down for 10 weeks. And when it opened, you needed to have space between all the customers. But the funniest thing happened. The sports card industry exploded exactly at the time where you would think it might have imploded. And that was wild to me. And as you know, as a store owner, your internet goes down for an hour. You're just like, oh my God, the internet's down. The power goes out. And here we being dark. But the funniest part of that whole thing was May of 2020 was the biggest month in the history of Burbank sports cards. And we were closed to the public.
Wow.
That was the business that we were doing on eBay. And eBay basically saved my business in many ways. And we were having a real first world problem was you couldn't have anybody at your business, but you're selling things 4X and you were used to selling things. So you have all these orders and you don't have bodies to ship these orders. And you're sneaking a couple people in just to take care of some of the small orders and get them out the door. But the backlog was ridiculous. And even when we brought everybody back, the velocity of sales were still there. So we were playing catch up for a couple months there. And again, first world problem, but as I like to say, still a problem. And so what ended up happening was our store, we soon found out after COVID and not after COVID, but after we were able to reopen, our store was too small to handle the folks coming through, especially with social distancing. And we'd have 25 people waiting outside to get into our store. We would have an easy up outside. And we were in the uncomfortable position of literally asking customers to finalize their purchases so that they could leave and so I could get someone else in the door. It was kind of like a waiter going up to a table and they've been there for 2 hours saying, if you could just get the check paid, we need to fill this table. And it's something, again, we never, ever, ever thought we'd be in a situation that we'd have to do that. But there we were. And all of a sudden, a building opened up about a block away. And it was, the showroom was, 3.5 times the size. And we moved in here back in July of 2021, kept the old building, which is a warehouse basically, where we have 40 million cards online. So we have that, and now we have the retail store here. So without COVID, I'm not sure that we'd be in the store we are now, and certainly not in the position to go into the store that we're planning to move into. So yeah, it's been a wild ride from a kid collecting cards at 8 to delivering flyers at 12 to owning a store at 22. And now at 58, kind of being an OG and looking to move into a 14,000 foot facility that used to be a Rite Aid, which blows my mind.
Well, thank you for first off that comprehensive historical lesson in the hobby, because I think a lot of people can glean a lot from that, and realizing you take a lot from just what you said, from the ups and downs to the innovation to everything that you've brought to the hobby with your team. So now we have Burbank Rite Aid, right? So this is this massive project. Would you mind sharing a little bit about how big it's going to be, what the plans are, and then of course I think you just mentioned about the warehouse. Is that coming? Is that going to be a part of this?
Yeah, so this building became available because we were looking for a little bit bigger space because we've kind of outgrown. This place is about 4,000 feet. We outgrew it, and we were looking for maybe 7,000 or 8,000 feet, maybe keep the warehouse and move into a bigger space just for retail. And then our broker comes up to us and says, there's this Rite Aid that's available. And I'm like, no. That's not going to happen. And he kind of explained it to me, and he told me the price per square foot. And I'm like, no. And he goes, it's negotiable. Why don't you go take a look? So I went and took a look. It's got 70 parking spots, which is wild. It's actually a standalone Rite Aid. It's not part of a bigger shopping complex. And it's right at one of the busiest intersections in the city. And there's a bakery called Porto's, across the street, which is basically the busiest eatery in the city. And it's on Hollywood Way, which is the street that Burbank Airport is on and where the studios basically are on the other side of the city. So there's a lot of cars passing every single day. So I went into the building, and literally it's like walking into a Rite Aid that just had all the inventory stripped from the shelves. There's like Lancome signs. There's a pharmacy. There's 20 coolers for all the sodas and milk that they were selling. And it was just bizarre. And walking around, and of course it's huge. And so I'm walking around, and he's like, Rob, if you're interested, make an offer. And so came back and thought about it. The size of the parking lot is kind of an extension of the showroom because of the events that you can run in the parking lot. And the location is probably the best in Burbank. And made an offer on it. And it was kind of low. And they came back pretty close to where we were. And I'm like, wow, this might actually be doable. And we just kind of split the difference and signed a lease. And so, and then there we go. And so we blew out all the coolers. We blew out the pharmacy, tore up all the old school tile, and the lighting for 14,000 feet all needs to be replaced because it's old school dim pharmacy lighting. And, waiting on some permits from the city, and gonna literally bring in the tradesmen to build this thing out. We've already got it laid out with an architect. We know exactly what we want it to look like. And it's about 14,300 feet, wow, of which about 7,500 will be showroom, and 6,500 feet will be offices, will be the warehouse for singles, shipping area, cubicles, all that. The key, there's a couple of keys, but the one I'm most excited about is cards on demand, where you can walk into the shop and you can sit there and say, I'm looking for Tim Tebow cards. Now, being in Southern California, now you might have a Tim Tebow section. We don't. And chances of us getting an expensive Tim Tebow card to put in showcases are slim. But you'll be able to go to a kiosk, type in Tim Tebow. I'll be able to get most of the building under one roof, most of the inventory. We'll probably still have a small space close by. As expensive space, I don't want bulk supplies or bulky junk in the building. So we might have an extra 2,000 feet close by. But the fact that as a store owner, people walk in looking for a certain player, and it's hard to say yes to those requests.
Yeah.
But the big thing with my business is we try to say yes to as many different queries as possible. And a lot of that has to revolve around, do you have this? Do you have these? Yeah. What are your latest Jacksonville Jaguar cards? I can actually answer that question. Type in 2023 Jaguars. Every card in the building pops up. And again, you click on the ones you want to buy, you pay for it, we pull it. I don't think there's anything like it in the industry, and we're really excited about that.
I've seen similar things with TCG stores that have, but that's a lot easier because they're so finite sets, right? And you have people that can pull certain cards. But this is definitely something that I think we're going to have to pivot into. And I think you're going to be, again, the pioneer. You're going to be the trailblazer for it, and see how many people are going to see how important that is to have a yes, or if I don't have it here, I can grab it from our eBay. And we've actually started incorporating that in our shop too, is when people ask those questions is, hey, let's search our excess inventory on our Florida website, on our South Carolina website. Let's see if we can get those cards for you. So you bring up an amazing, I think, customer service element that people can take something from, which is you always want to be able to say yes. And if you don't, you can't say yes. Maybe you can still find that for them. But the one thing I'm bummed about, Rob, is I was hoping that I could get a prescription from my doctor for baseball cards and bring it to your new location, but I can't do that now. You take on the pharmacy out, so you might make some few South Californians a little upset, because I know that could have been something they could have requested.
Yeah, we could have had the drive-through. We could have had all kinds of different things. You could go into the fridge and get some chocolate milk, and yeah. But no, it's something we're really excited about. There's one more thing we're excited about is, the ability to put your hands on cards. I think a lot of the shops that have opened during COVID are basically breaker storefronts or
Yeah.
just selling unopened product or flipping slabs. We're building a system out, and I was at the other place for 5 hours yesterday working on this project where you're going to have about 300 4-row boxes of cards that are by sport and by year, and there's no base commons, and they'll all be 25 cents. This is basically the overflow, because you remember me at the card shows, like buying pallets and like buying out complete tables before it was kind of a cool thing to do on social media. And you buy so much stuff that you don't need, whether it's the shows and of course all the stuff we buy at the shop, and you're buying all these silver 21 mosaic cards that you already have 5 or 6 of everything, but you're kind of buying it all. So we're like, we're going to build this out where somebody could put their headphones in, sit for hours and buy 100 different cards of their choice for $25 and walk out the door going, that was amazing.
Yeah.
And it'll go all the way back to the 70s. You'll be able to pull down a box of 74 baseball and buy cards at a quarter. You'll be able to pull down a box of 23 baseball, and it's nothing but prospects, rookies, inserts, parallels. And that's kind of unique. So that will be at least 1 million cards on the floor, hopefully day one. And then we'll also have a section of stars set up in double shoes where we're going to have at least, I don't know, 150, 200,000 cards and at least 200 players, where you'll be able to grab Aaron Rodgers and you'll see cards from the late 2000s to present at $1 a piece. So what we're trying to do is build a physical database where you feel that you're on eBay, but instead of spending $1.50 a card plus shipping, in a lot of cases you're paying a quarter delivered and having that experience of putting your hands on cards. Because what are the busiest tables at a card show? The ones with singles, the ones with singles under $1, the ones where people are fighting to get to the boxes, to get up front. And these people can literally go to the National and pay all their expenses and make a lot of money just by having these singles built up throughout the year that they can bring to these shows. We're bringing it to Burbank, and it'll be at a scale that is greater than the National as a whole, as far as selection goes and organization goes. Like I was looking at it, like 98 SPX finite, there's going to be cards for a quarter, and they're all serial numbered. And I just have a ton of them already.
Yeah.
So, these are cards that might be at dollar tables, and they'll be a quarter, and they'll be by year in sport. So that's a huge project, spending thousands of dollars on it. Not going to be a profitable part of the shop, but that doesn't matter to me. I want people having this amazing experience and covering all the price points from a quarter to all the crazy stuff that Ryan buys in here. So something for
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for that, because that's the card shop experience, right? That's the experiential retail. That's what you and I have, known the hobby to be, and we've been on both sides of it. And I think that when people hear this, and when they see this, they're going to know, like, that's a place where I can go and experience all of the above. It's not going to be a place where, like you said, a lot of shops have veered in towards just being breaking operations or just being wax operations or maybe just slabs or something like that. But hands-on tangibility, I think, is key. You just brought up Ryan, so I got to ask you, how he's doing and stuff. I know this guy. For those at home or watching, listening, Ryan Varies is a savant. This man is an incredible customer service guy. I've always had great interactions with him, whether it be online or in person. And I know you could say a gazillion things about Ryan, and I'd love for you too as well. But I've heard and I've seen some social media that we've got another family member involved. So not just the card son, but we now also have the card daughter. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about what it's like bringing in the family and also having your daughter involved now.
I mean, I'm biased, but she's adorable. I never thought in a billion years that she'd want to work here. She double majored at UC Davis, corporate world, doing really well. Took her own path, wonderful, love it. But she started seeing the growth of the brand, and I think it was cemented at the Burbank card show, which is now the West Coast card show, when she saw the value of the brand, got to really know our marketing director and realized this could be a lot of fun and that she's got a skill set to help us grow the business. And I told her, I'll match what you're making, which nobody pays that much money for someone to come into their card shop. But I'm like, A, I want to be with her every day. And B, I know she'll be the queen of social media. And the beautiful thing about her is she knows nothing about cards. And if you've seen any of the videos that feature her so far, she knows nothing. And so we get to document her journey from coming into the family business to learning these types of things and where she'll be able to take the business, just like my son Ryan took us from being known as the ultimate online destination to becoming one of the big physical destinations. I feel that she'll bring in a whole different demographic, which I think is huge. And she already has a big platform with our brand. And to build off of that pre-built platform and just be this goofy, giggly, sweet girl that, you know, a lot of younger girls can relate to. And, you know, tell them about the hobby and tell them about what she's learning and how much she's enjoying it, and have her on the retail floor. It means the world to me, my wife, Sally. And again, I thought this was a get that I would never get. So couldn't be more proud, couldn't be happier. And you get to spend all this time with your kids when a lot of times the kids move away and the kids have other jobs. Mine are right here a few feet away. So I love it.
It's a cool testimony to what you've been able to accomplish. And I mean, hard work pays off, but also hard work gives you the opportunity to do things like this. And that is something, you know, we strive to be. And, you know, my wife and I working in the shop and growing a team is just one of these things that you dream of, and then all these opportunities just keep growing. And so it's amazing to see that. I think that I'd love to hear your take on this, Rob. I get it a lot. I hear it a lot too, where people come to me and say, I'm going to start a card shop, or this looks easy. I'm going to do this. Would you mind being as raw as you possibly can and maybe sharing with that prospective person who's getting into the hobby? They want to make this maybe it's a shop or a breaking operation or a flipping operation, whatever it is. What does it take, man? Because you are, you know, one of the most seasoned vets in this game.
You're just saying I'm old. People ask that all the time. And if you're really good at this, you make it look easy. But what they don't understand is I'm here at 8 a.m. I'm here till 7 p.m., maybe even later than that. And maybe I shouldn't be, but I enjoy it. And I feel that in order for this engine to hum, it's necessary that I touch cards. And you can see the mess behind me, that literally every single thing that we buy goes through me. And it all goes out into these systems where, you know, other people can work on them from there. But it is work. It is labor. It's the most laborious kind of industry where people are bringing triple shoes of the most disorganized things you can imagine. It's not by sport, certainly not by year or brand. A lot of times it's not even, you know, flipped the right way.
True.
And here you are having to manage all this. And so it takes a lot of labor. It takes a lot of staffing to be able to grow a business. I think it's impossible, actually, to go in as a single person operation in this day and age and to be able to succeed in the industry, whether it's handling the back end business of the business, the social media, the customer service, the shipping. You need people for all these things, and you need multiple people for most of these things. And as you'll attest, as you grow, you'll need multiple people for multiple locations if you want to grow. So without staffing, it's almost impossible to grow. A couple things I would suggest is take a look at your store from the customer's point of view and ask yourself if you'd want to walk into that business. Is it clean? Is it organized? Is it friendly? Is it community? Is it someplace that someone would want to spend 45 minutes driving to the location, an hour and a half at the location, and 45 minutes back home? That's 3 hours. And do you have the kind of business that would warrant that kind of time where you'd want to cut 3 hours out of your day to go to this card shop? What do they offer that's different than everybody else? And they also have to realize that allocation plays a huge role in the success or the failure of a hobby shop. You're going in new, chances are you're not going to have that allocation, and you're going to have to really work that much harder to do the business. And so it is difficult. It takes a ton of capital. It takes a ton of time. And then there's the labor part of it. So someone like yourself, hopefully someone like myself, that makes it look easy. There's been decades of building up to making it look that easy. And we've already seen a bunch of stores that have opened in the last 3-4 years already go out of business.
Yeah.
Because they aren't able to create that niche. They aren't able to buy cards over the counter. And even if they have the capital to work it over the counter, they don't have the staffing or the time to work those cards. If anybody's familiar with our store, things that come in one day go into the showcases, in many cases the next day. I was here before we started, literally pulling 2 showcases of inventory out, sending that over to my team to get online, and putting another 250 cards into those 2 showcases that literally were empty this morning. So people know that every single day they're going to walk into Burbank and see things that they didn't see yesterday. So creating FOMO for your business as well, utilizing social media. And I don't see this from a whole lot of stores, almost any for that matter, that use social media as a platform to show people what's new in their showcases on a daily basis. So there's a lot of things that you need to be able to look at. And if you're just a breaker, stay home and just do your breaks from home, because, you know, retail space is expensive. Staffing is expensive. Talented staffing is almost impossible to find, because one of the situations is, if you're good enough to do it yourself, why go to work for somebody else? So to hire talented people, you're not paying minimum wage. You're not paying double minimum wage. You're having to pay serious money to these people that will grow your business, but it's expensive. So clean, organized, create the FOMO, consistent social media, buying, creating liquidity, being able to process cards quickly. Those are all big asks. And honestly, if you can't do any of those things well, I think it's going to be tough. And but my best piece of advice is find an area that doesn't have a lot of shops to begin with. And it blows my mind in LA how many pockets of population don't actually have shops. Pasadena, huge city, does not have a single card shop.
Wow.
So if you're looking, there's a lot of pockets that don't have shops in their immediate areas. If you're hell-bent on opening a shop and you feel you can do at least most of the things we talked about somewhat well, try to find an area where you don't already have 3 or 4 shops.
Some gold nuggets there for listeners. So we are here with Rob Varies from Burbank Sports Cards on the Meelypod Hobby Podcast. You just mentioned to me the idea of fresh bread. So you're across the street from a bakery, and you know this new shop's going to be amazing. And when you're putting out these new cards, there's going to be this aroma that they're going to have to battle now, right? Because you're processing inventory so quick. And I love the fact that you guys are providing fresh, unique stuff that people, you know, it's creating FOMO, like you said. And that's the one thing we know in this business is people don't want to miss out. They don't want to miss the deal. So you definitely struck gold on that. But processing cards is not easy. And again, you are someone I tip my hat to, because I know when I do it, it's just trying to sort everything in every different dimension that it needs to go into, and how fast can I get it done, and what needs to get, you know, graded, what all these types of things that we do. So there's a lot there. There's a lot there to unpack, but thank you for that answer. One thing I wanted to ask you, Rob, I've been watching your socials, and I'm starting to realize that, you know, Burbank Sports Cards has become kind of a Disney World, you know, in a way. It's like a destination. I'm seeing, like, I love it when people come to our shop and they'll say, oh, I'm from this state, or I drove 2 hours from across the state, and blah, 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 and it makes you feel great. But Rob, you got people coming to your store from like across the world. So like, how does this make you feel, man? Like, you know, when you got these people saying, hey, I'm visiting from so-and-so country, you know, I wanted to come to Burbank Sports Cards on my vacation. What does that make you feel like?
It's wild. The best story I have probably since we moved in here was I like to go out in the showroom. Hey, what the hell's going on? And, just kind of get that excitement. And I'm talking to someone from New Zealand who was like, Rob, this was a bucket list thing, been following you. It's great to be here in person. And I walk around and I meet another person from New Zealand. And of course, you assume that that's part of the family. No, there was two different people from New Zealand in my store at the same time, which was wild. I always like to joke, people will come into the store before they go to the hotel and they're dropped off in their Ubers and they have luggage. So behind the corner where I'm at, we kind of have a bell desk joke going on. And it's something. If people are coming to Southern California, or at least within a couple hours of here for vacation, they make it a point to come here. And that means a lot to me and the staff that we've become something of a rite of passage for collectors, no matter where they are on Earth. And that's just, hard work. It's getting the messaging out through social media and just showing them that we buy. And I think that is the biggest component of our retail store, is you can come in from Germany and bring your Black Zion case with you and know that we're going to be fair, that we can make you liquid, we can give you store credit, so you don't have to ding the credit card. And I think that's what drives a lot of people from everywhere to us. Yeah, is that we'll sit there and you'll be able to shop and be a kid in a candy store because we will take your merchandise. And but yeah, whether it's the card show, being in Anaheim, or us kind of touting ourselves as the happiest place in the hobby, it means a lot. I had kids in here, 2 days ago, that they were in Carlsbad, which is an hour and a half away. They went there for vacation. Legoland is there. And they just hounded the parents that we need to go up to Burbank. And so they drove up from Carlsbad, and they were from South Carolina, North Carolina, one of the two Carolinas. And I'm like, that's amazing commitment from the parents. It's an amazing commitment from these hobbyists to come to us. And it's from almost any country. We had someone from Hong Kong that flew in for a day to do a big deal with Ryan and flew out that night. And I'm like, that is wild. So it means a lot. It means that we've built a brand that people trust. We've built a brand that people want to interact with. And we're hoping with the card show that we're putting on that we're able to scale that brand and scale that sense of community. And it's hard work, but it's an amazing payoff when these people get so excited to be here.
Special for sure. And just hearing these stories and seeing them, just it encourages me as a shop owner, right? To push harder and to see what you've built there. So it's amazing. It's amazing, man. I don't want to put on my my mafia voice here. I don't have one, but I want to come to the Cardfather and ask some advice.
Kiss the ring.
I want to kiss the ring, and I need some wisdom, Cardfather. So what does the next 20 years of the hobby look like? And I keep that very open in general, but I'd love to hear your take on what you think the next 20 years will look like in this space.
Next 3 years is tough. You're sending this out 20 years. That's interesting. I'm hoping to be alive in 20 years. B, I know my business is in good hands. Ryan's 29. My daughter's 25. So we've tacked decades on to our business, which is something that's meaningful because a lot of people don't have succession plans, maybe don't have kids that are interested in taking over the business. So at least I feel our brand will still be around and relevant in 20 years. I think it's going to be in a really good place. The hobby for decades was built around white males in their 30s through early 50s. There wasn't a lot of diversity by age, gender, ethnicity. And I think we've done an amazing job of being inclusive, bringing women into the hobby, getting the messaging out there. And I still think we have a long way to go, as most sports fans aren't sports card collectors. And I think we're in a unique position today with Fanatics coming on board, and people are still with their mixed opinions on Fanatics. But I don't think there's any company that is able to turn more sports fans into sports card collectors. And I think you would have seen that at Fanatics Fest, is just the sheer amount of bodies that could come in that were huge sports fans, and they were exposed sports cards, and maybe they were putting their hands on cards for the first time. And I know that they're very, very new in the space, but getting their products across their platform is huge. They have 98 million registered users on their platform, and now they've got Fanatics Collect. And we made a conscious decision to take our inventory over the next couple of months and take it from eBay and put it on to Fanatics, because I believe that our inventory now, instead of going and preaching it to the choir, we'll be able to take this inventory and put it in front of sports fans and show them the thrill of collecting their favorite players, building collections. I think that that's a huge component in things. So in 20 years, I think we're going to have a lot more mainstream appeal. I think we've done an amazing job of garnering that. But I do think that Fanatics will get commercials on live sports television, which is something that we've never had as a category. You see what Topps has done in a short period of time, and you compare that to what Panini's doing, and it's night and day. And if we were still in the old Topps model, the current Panini model, I think Upper Deck actually does a better job than Panini in getting their marketing and branding out there. So I think that there'll be more stores. I think that we've seen stores improve upon themselves in big kind of ways. And I think a lot of it has to do with the Fanatics component. Fanatics doesn't want to give products to shops that are messy, to shops that just, are only there to flip product. There has to be a reason for that shop to be there. And it has to be a positive experience that looks a certain way. And I think that was necessary. And a lot of dealers were grumbling. And I'm like, they just did you the hugest favor to invest in yourselves. And I think that any store that's opening going forward is going to be relatively spacious. It's going to be clean. It's going to be organized, because they know in order to get product. I mean, I've seen pictures of your stores. They're amazing. They look like stores I want to go into. And I think there'll be more stores. I think there'll be more stores in malls. And I think that we'll have cards online in places they've never been.
Yeah.
I have experience. Michael Rubin had a business before Fanatics called GSI, and they were basically a fulfillment company for all the different sports brands. I was the actual sports card facilitator for those sites, and we were able to get stupid money on team stores for cards, where we were paying 45 points to be there, which is asinine. But we were also getting $50 for Topps Derek Jeter rookies that were 15 in the store and selling them 20-1 on that site as opposed to in our store. And so getting cards onto the team sites is a huge push for us. And that's what we're looking to do with Fanatics, is someone goes on to PortlandTrailblazers.com and they're able to buy a pack of Damon Lillard cards, 20 different ones, and they're able to buy rookie cards of their favorite players. And I think those things are coming as well. And it could even be collegiate sites that we have trading cards that kind of fit that profile. And I think that we haven't done a good job in our industry of getting cards into the most trafficked places on the internet that, again, we're preaching to the choir right now. And we're getting some new users, but we need to preach to the wider market. And
right.
I think that's what the role of Burbank is going to be. That's the role of Fanatics. And I hope that's the industry at large, looking to not just cater to their core audience and do the marketing that's necessary, spend the money that's necessary, and create quality content that's compelling, which you're obviously doing right now.
Well, I agree with you on the Fanatics take. I think they've done so much work, forerunner work, right? They've gone before and this marketing element and bringing new eyes. They've cast such a big net. that I think we've never been able to even throw, right? And it's very interesting. We got Fanatics Fest Orlando coming up soon, and I'm intrigued to see. I think they're going to bring something to the West Coast in March, but I'm intrigued to see as this grows. And you talk about experiences and you talk about growing the hobby. Before we get into our rapid fire segment here, I'd love for you to just do a quick plug on the West Coast Card Show and kind of why should somebody come to it?
This last one was our 2-year anniversary, and we've been doing Anaheim now, and it's a cardcation. That's kind of the hashtag that we use. Is to go to Cleveland's kind of a solitary pursuit. You ask the wife and kids if they want to go to Cleveland or Atlantic City, and chances are the answer is a big no. But we planted it in the Anaheim Convention Center, literally across the street from Disneyland, where you can tack a couple days before the show or after the show. And then the whole family wants to kind of partake in the experience. So I think location's big. I think the space is a beautiful space that we've had. It's been fully carpeted, very bright. We actually have internet. We actually have air conditioning. So I think that those have been big. We had 750 tables at our last one. And the traffic that we drive is without autograph guests. So it is purely a card show. Because I believe that autograph guests in a lot of cases take a lot of money off the floor. And it takes a lot of customers off the floor when they're waiting in lines for that athlete. So we built this without athletes. And next August, the West Coast Card Show is going into the biggest hall in Anaheim. It's 230,000 feet. And it's where the National was in 91, 95, and 2006. And every single time we seem to level it up, and we get customers from all over the world. We like to think it's the Burbank experience on steroids. And we're just bringing all of our best friends along with us.
As somebody who's attended, it's an amazing because I was able to come to the one at Anaheim, the last one that you held, and I feel like the West Coast is in such a dire need of these kinds of events, and you've captured that, and it's been awesome to watch. We'll make sure Meelypops will have a presence out there in the future shows as well. I think that you're learning too. Like, I mean, I remember the very first Burbank show, just how like the fervor that people had, just that they had this opportunity, the lines that were outside, and they could come to this show. There's finally something that someone had put out there for them. So a lot of that, I think, just it tends to your hobby know-how and the push for the collector base. So thank you again for doing that on the West Coast. I think it's fun to see it grow, and we got so many customers that in our breaks or they buy from our website, and they always talk about that show, and I love to hear it. So the West Coast Card Show for you folks at home, it's been rebranded, but it's I think going to get even bigger and just a really cool cardcation as you quote it. But I want to get into. I mean, we could talk forever, Rob. You and I could talk here for hours about stuff. I mean, literally, I end every segment with a guest with a rapid fire segment. It's our Titan MRI sponsored rapid fire Meelypops segment where we what we do is we just give you some questions that I've done some research on. I've done some back digging, and I want to see if you're up for it, Cardfather. Are you up for this rapid fire?
Totally up. I'm ready. Let's go. Bring it.
All right, buddy. Here we go. So we try and keep our responses less than 30 seconds, as quick as you want. And first question: ice cream or baseball cards?
Ice cream.
Ice cream. I bring that up because of the old stories we've heard about how you had to give up the choice between the two. You have all the baseball cards now, so I get it. All right. Yeah, an inverted Jenny. Go ahead.
Real quick, my local baseball card shop was the ice cream man. And, having to make a choice between baseball cards and ice cream, I always made the choice of baseball cards. I have enough now. I would prefer the ice cream.
I love it. All right. This goes back to some of your days in prior collecting and prior shop. An inverted Jenny stamp or a 1943 copper penny?
43 copper penny. It's just so much more well-known. I've never owned one. You rarely see it. It's crazy. I'd love to own one of those.
Ooh, so anybody out there, here's that. Rob's ready to do some dealing. Who can stack or who can sort a stack of base faster, you or Ryan?
I don't think I've ever seen Ryan sort like a full 1,000-count row. I've done it for years. I'd like to think that I could still beat him in sorting cards. It would be close because my eyes aren't as good and my reflexes might not be as good, but I think I can still take them.
I like it. We'll have to set that up.
Me it wouldn't be close at all. Ryan would smoke me. That's what I'm hearing. Wow, I didn't even know you were here.
We need the Burbank Olympics is what we need. We need to see the card Olympics.
We're going to test that, son. All
right. 93 SP Jeter or an 89 Upper Deck Griffey?
89 Upper Deck Griffey. There wouldn't be a 93 SP Jeter without an 89 Upper Deck Griffey.
Ooh, good answer. What's worse, Rob, an unfair feedback or a non-pay on a high-end auction sale on eBay?
Not getting paid on the high-end auction. Unfair feedbacks, they're going to happen. When you sell as many cards as we do, there's always BS. But when you move a big card and, you have that disappointment, I think that's worse.
Sticking with the eBay theme, what's your wildest eBay selling memory?
Really, it just has to do with COVID and just the sheer amount of cards that were coming through, and probably just the sheer amount of orders that are themed by player, and how many people still truly collect players. And you'll see that through our eBay sales.
Make sure you check out the store, man. It's amazing. All right, going into your musical side, a good bass or a good electric guitar?
Good electric players, guitar players are a dime a dozen. Finding someone that wants to play bass, much harder to find good bass players than good guitar players.
I love it. All right, so I texted you this image prior to, and I want to know we're gonna superimpose it on the screen in here in a second, but it's a picture of Bob Varies, the coin collector. I almost feel like it's a doppelganger, but I want to know, could Ryan Varies ever pull off this Mario Lopez look in his prime? I mean, he's in his prime now, but could he do it?
He wouldn't want to do it. I know that. It's business in the front, party in the back. No, I don't think that he'd ever want to pull off a mullet. So I'd like to think that I could pull it off better, just because I was stupid enough to actually have one.
I mean, it's an amazing picture. It's got to go in the Hall of Fame for card shop owners for sure. All right, biggest card ever pulled at Burbank?
I would have to say 2021 Upper Deck LeBron Kobe Pose Black, 1 of 1.
Ooh, wow.
Right at the height, right when it first came out. I'd have to say that was the biggest card.
That is that's a gem right there. All right, last question for you, Rob, as we get through this Titan MRI rapid fire segment. When it's all said and done, Mr. Varies, what's the one thing that you hope the Cardfather has imparted into the hobby?
I would think education, transparency, being willing to get up in front of people and just tell people how we built this business over decades. Maybe they would eliminate making a mistake that we've made in the past, and just try to elevate the hobby, kind of show off the passion I have for it. Because I think the word hobby gets misconstrued. People talk about hobby with breaks and hobby with these big auction prices. And I don't believe that's hobby. I believe it's putting cards into the hands of collectors. We've sold 14 million cards online. And I believe that there's a silent majority out there of folks that truly collect cards. Maybe 80% of the people that partake are actually collectors, and having a part in building all of those collectors, educating people that maybe wanted to get in the hobby, maybe are running card shops. I'd like to just be my legacy that I cared, I think that's the greatest hobby in the world, and that I've made an impact on somebody's life, whether they're a collector, a dealer, or, future generations, hopefully.
Well, this is an internal personal story here. I don't know if you remember this, but about 2015 National, I had actually walked up to you and I said, Robbie, you don't know me really well. We've kind of gotten to know each other back then. But I said, I watched your video on YouTube. Now, YouTube in 2015 wasn't as big, of this Fujitsu scanner that you mentioned earlier in the podcast here. And I remember as I was starting kind of online more and putting quantity base up there and making, profit on this stuff that had nothing into, you were very gracious in sharing that information. I think that's one thing that I've gained, and I hope more people will, is to actually open their ears and listen, because you've been successful in that. So, man, this has been a treat, man, having you on, and just the fact that you guys have grown so much is awesome to see. If you guys aren't following Burbank Cards on Instagram, please go follow them. There's a lot of awesome posts there. West Coast Card Show coming up. The new that we call is it Burbank Shop 3.0 or 2.0? 3.0, right?
No, it's one, two, three. It's our fifth location.
5.0. Burbank Sports Cards
5.0.
5.0 is coming up. Can you share that address again for people listening?
It'll be 935 North Hollywood Way at the corner of Magnolia and Hollywood Way, right across from Porto's Bakery.
So you got it, guys. You got baseball cards and you got a bakery. You can't literally make this up. It's literally a match made in heaven. Well, man, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I see a bunch of boxes back there that need to get sorted and priced and put out. So I know you got to get back to that, brother. But thank you so much for the time. Appreciate
I
you.
enjoyed it. I'd love to come back. So just let me know. This was great. Keep up the good work. I was watching some of your prior videos. You're an amazing interviewer, and not everybody is. So keep up the good work.
Thanks, brother. Take it easy, man. Tell Ryan hello for me.
Cardfather out.
So there you have it. We had our interview with the Cardfather, the one and only Rob Varies. And make sure you guys go back and listen to some of that, because as I'm processing it, there's a lot of their nuggets in there for whether it be entrepreneurs, hobbyists, collectors, flippers, whatever it may be. A lot to glean from that from Rob. So we'll make sure we follow him on the socials. Make sure you go check out all of the opportunities they have to buy things, whether it be on Fanatics Collect, eBay, their live sales. There's so much going on with Burbank, and really just a pioneer in the hobby. We'll be back for segment 3. We're going to talk about wax.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life. And the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans. All right, we welcome you back to the Meelypod Hobby Podcast. Good to be back. I know that was a lot of fun talking to Rob there, and that's just a legit nickname. There's not any cool nicknames in baseball anymore. Like the Big Hurt was Frank Thomas, and
the Kid.
Yeah, the Kid, Griffey, of course, but yeah,
the Captain,
the Cardfather.
Yeah.
I mean, can't beat that.
I mean, as you hear, he's got the card daughter, the card son, the card grand. I mean, the whole family's involved, which is pretty cool. But yeah, Rob, just a staple in the hobby. I would say he's on the Mount Rushmore of card shop owners. If I could put that up there, I think he's just innovated. You guys heard it in the interview, but innovated so much, showed people so much, and now they have this massive operation that they're going to be starting in their new card shop. So it's really interesting to see the growth of him and his son, and it's really only been 20-30 years, but for them to just be an international brand. We talked about people coming from outside the country to visit LA to go to Burbank to go see the card shop. Like that's a pretty amazing thing. So kudos to Rob, good guy.
All right, what else is amazing is these the wax is our wax segment now comes at it, but Topps Chrome Cosmic, and I know these came out a few years ago, but it's I'm looking for Pluto, man, or obviously Uranus.
Yeah, I mean, I think you want the Uranus interplanetary refractor. So Topps Cosmic Chrome is such a niche, but also just kind of a cultic brand. People chase these interplanetary refractors. They're super short printed, especially the farther you get away from the sun. And they have players, they have rookie cards. So something like you might pull a Skeens, Neptune or something like that, where it can be big money. So those are a big chase in there. The autos are very sought after. The auto list is really good, the checklist, but I think it's 1 in every 3 or 4 boxes. Wow. So 3 or 4 autos per case, which is not a lot. And the boxes are pretty pricey. So as you guys can check our website, meelypops.com, you can see our pricing compared to others. We're pretty aggressive in moving the product. But again, we don't get a lot of this stuff. And so Topps Cosmic Chrome, I think, is going to probably go up in value over time. It just always does every year. So we'll see how it goes. You have to tell us what you pull on your box. All right,
we'll do that.
Bowman Sterling though is another jam that you like, because this is a ton of prospects in here. So this is for the baseball nerds. You guys know, like this guy sitting next to me. This is just a ton of younger guys coming up through the leagues. They have some vets in there as well and some rookie cards, but Sterling's always been known for just being heavy prospect driven. And I like Sterling because I don't want to call it a poor man's Bowman Chrome, because I think Bowman Chrome is different, and it's like a different kind of category. Bowman Sterling is like a really nice product, on-card autographs, classy product, but the autos don't sell for as much. So you're paying a little less. There's 5 mini boxes. It's a very different kind of product type than opening packs from Bowman Chrome. But Sterling's out this week. There's also a massive release, Jeff, for basketball. They've had some early openings of it. It's called Topps Mercury Basketball, and it's pretty much a Wembenyama specific product.
Okay.
And I've been watching some of these breaks. They're selling for $10,000, $11,000 a box. Each box contains 2 Wembanyama autographs, and then you get, I think it's 5 to 7 other numbered cards. And I will say, from my perspective, I think the product's unique. We have it. We're going to be selling it. We'll be breaking it. It's got some really cool chases, but they seem to be very hard to hit. So for that price point, I'm not sure what's going to happen with Topps Mercury. Also, just a couple things else coming out this week for you Marvel fans. Marvel Annual comes out this week, which is a massive collector set. And then, of course, 23-24 Metal Universe, which is massive for hockey because of the precious metal gem cards and people still chasing Connor Bedard. So it's exciting week for releases. Not too heavy. I know the last couple weeks we had like 7, 8, 9, 10 things.
Yeah.
This week I think we're at 5 or 6. So, check out Cosmic Chrome, Sterling. You can get them from our website. You can get them from our stores. Also, scmeelypops.com now has a website. So feel free to jump on any of those places and grab yourself a box of wax.
Yeah, make sure you jump on those fantasy teams too and make the trades and continue to collect your teams. Everybody's getting hurt now in the NFL, so we'll see how that affects the industry too as things go up and down.
You got to be on the waiver wire, and you got to be ready to pick up free agents. It seems like everybody, I mean, you drafted Christian McCaffrey. I mean,
still sitting on him.
Just sitting there, you know what I mean?
Sitting there doing some damage. But now Juju may be giving me some Juju
coming back.
He figured it out this week and, getting that Rishi Rice role. But, hey, you never know. And I know he's not obviously a big card guy, but, maybe get some help in the fantasy world. But, of course, if you want to help us, you can leave some feedback and make sure that you comment on any of the ways that you are watching or listening here to the Meelypod Hobby Podcast. We certainly encourage that. Things you want to see, guests you may want us to seek out and find. I know in a couple of weeks I'm going to be wowed by a guest, a guy that
I know. I'm literally wearing the St. Louis hat today, and I got to talk about a Braves player. So your boy, Javi Lopez. In 2 weeks, we'll have him on. It'll be the week of the card show, I believe, Upstate Card Show, which has kind of consumed my brain recently outside of this hurricane. So that's a big thing. We just we're announcing the Clemson players that'll be there, which will be fun. We're gonna have a really unique player come who's very dynamic and hasn't really done a signing to that too. So I know Clemson cracking the top 10 right now, so that'll be fun. And it'll be a lot of fun at that card show if you get a chance. Spartanburg, South Carolina, called the Upstate Card Show. You can go to upstatecardshow.com. But we have vendors coming from all across the nation, especially from the Southeast. SGC is going to be there. I have my friend Sal, who's known as Kick Stradamus. He's actually designed 3 cards. I'll show it to you in the break, Jeff.
Okay.
But he's designed 3 cards that he's going to drop at the event, and they're renditions of the Jordan rookie card, the Acuna rookie card, and then a really funny, he does a lot of non-sports, so Steamboat Willie, which is Mickey Mouse, version of the card. They're going to be a special set only at the Meelypops card show, and then he's going to have parallels as well for sale. So that'll be a lot of fun. Just a lot of things happening at that event, and I can't wait for it.
Yeah, so look forward, and Clemson relevant again. Dabo's figured it out.
I guess so.
And, see if he can keep that thing rolling with no NIL guys.
Yeah,
so he's making it work.
No DJU.
That's right. Well, this guy always makes it work. He is Jameel. I am Jeff. Appreciate you listening to another episode of the Meelypod Hobby Podcast.
Thank you for joining us. We will see you next Thursday at noon.